There is one very common and very big mistake that I keep seeing when it comes to picking technique whenever I'm analyzing self-taught student clips from my Patreon community. And this is one of those super important details that separates the professional from the beginner and intermediate players. And this big mistake concerns actually practicing your picking technique every single day. Turns out a lot of players are doing it wrong. Because most players naturally want to focus on economy of motion whenever they are working on their picking technique, so playing like this, keeping the movements as small and as relaxed as possible, which is perfect for building speed in the clean technique. I also practice this way quite a lot. But in a practical context, when you're actually recording music or playing live on stage, it can be really cool to have quite a bit of picking attack. Practicing with a bit more punch when it comes to your picking technique can also help immensely with further unlocking your wrist, because that's the huge mistake that most beginner and intermediate players make. Whenever they are playing with more picking attack and more expressive dynamics, they tend to cramp up, they're not picking with their wrist anymore, and it turns into kind of a full arm motion with a lot of tension right here, for example. So with today's exercises, I want to take you through an easy and super fun 5-step process that will allow you to further build your wrist picking motion so that you can also play very fast, clean and precise, just picking from your wrist by adding interesting accents and dynamics with a cool exercise like this, for example. Here's step number 1. So the first step you want to work on is picking an alternate picking exercise where you're playing notes on the low E string, for example, but you also force yourself to switch between different strings. For example, the 4th note is an upstroke on the A string. So here's the first half of the measure. And as you can hear, I really want to make sure to accent those upstrokes on the higher strings. And in general, I want this riff to sound quite aggressive, so I'm not practicing it like this. I want this kind of sound. And here's the important detail: even though I'm digging in quite a bit, I'm still only working with my wrist like that. So even though I get a lot of attack, I'm only using my wrist like this, and I can really feel already how this is warming me up. And for the second half, I'm repeating this concept and I'm moving to A minor. Always with that low open E string in between, and then I move down to G major. So when you practice this, focus on the wrist movement. Always accent those upstrokes on the higher strings. Make them louder than all the other notes. And the third thing you want to pay attention to is keeping your fretting hand relaxed while your picking hand is actually playing a bit more aggressively. That's what separates the pros from the beginners and intermediate players. Even though you're digging in a bit harder with your picking hand, your fretting hand is still relaxed. Now the next exercise is my personal favorite one that I'm working on right now every single day. Before I show it to you and before we move through all of the necessary steps in this video, I know that you might feel a bit lost with all the techniques you're supposed to practice every single day. You're supposed to work on economy of motion, but you're also supposed to dig in more with your picking. You should work on alternate picking, economy picking, sweep picking. You should also study some music theory, arpeggios, scales, etc, etc. I know that all of this can be a bit confusing and, dare I say, overwhelming. So I put together an amazingly helpful step-by-step structured path for all of my guitar students on Patreon. Those are easy to follow 30-day courses that you can do one after the other. They tell you exactly what to practice every single day. No more confusion, you will have a guided path and structured system. And even if you have some questions along the way, I just set up a brand new Discord server for all of my personal coaching and Platinum members on Patreon. This is where you can get your additional questions answered, and you will even get some super helpful feedback on your practice videos. All you have to do is click the link down below, patreon.com/bernd. I will see you over there. But now here's exercise and step number 2. Alright, so this is where it gets a bit more challenging, and that's how I practice this at the moment. The system is quite similar. We have 3 notes again on a lower string, in this case the D string, and then 1 note with an upstroke on the B string. Once again, That note is where I place my heavy accent. But then we don't follow this pattern, then you just have 2 notes on the lower string before you're playing 1 note on the high E string, and then you only have 1 note on the lower string before you play a note on the B string. So here's the full pattern up to this point. So this pattern is much more intricate and practical, and it will really train you to nail those string transitions with your wrist picking movement, because up next there's a really cool descending kind of pattern. So here's the entire phrase. Super effective for your wrist picking motion. Your fretting hand also has to work quite a lot, especially when it comes to avoiding overlapping notes and unwanted noise. And it also sounds really cool. That's what makes it my current favorite exercise. So make sure to give this one a try. Of course, as always, I also made a dedicated practice package for this week's exercises on Patreon. Aside from the structured courses over there, I also make weekly practice packages like this, where you can download the tabs, guitar profiles, backing tracks, and even play along videos, so that you can practice each week's exercises in detail. You can also download this one right away by just clicking the link down below. Hope you have fun. But for now, let's check out exercise and level number 3. So this is where the topic of building speed gets involved. We're switching to 16th note triplets, still keeping the focus on just picking with the wrist and adding some punch to a couple of notes. So the notes I want to accent right here are the upstroke on the G string and the downstroke on the B string. After that first pattern, we're changing that highest note from G on the 8th fret to A on the 10th fret. And then we have one huge skipping movement for the end of the phrase, because you're playing 3 notes again on the D string, but then you have an upstroke on the high E string. So this is where you really have to jump with your pick, and this will really teach you control with your picking hand, because when you try this for the first time, you might land on the wrong string or you will get some annoying string noise. So with this third step, you really focus on building speed while still retaining those picking dynamics, because even when you play very fast like this, it will make a huge difference in your sound when you actually manage to accent those notes. Instead of just playing the pattern like this, there's nothing wrong with that, but it sounds very different compared to this, right? Sometimes it's just really cool to have that additional picking attack. It will make you sound much more expressive. And for level number 4, we're literally taking things to the next level. Here's today's last exercise. This one's gonna be a real challenge for your picking technique, but I promise working on this will really pay off. Check it out. So as you can hear, even though things get faster and more complicated now at the last levels, it still sounds very musical. It's actually a really cool riff that also includes a pull-off at the start. So for the first 2 notes, I'm only picking once and I'm pulling off to that second note. That goes for all the shapes. So I'm moving from C major to B diminished, A minor, and G major at the end. And I'm also adding notes of those chords or arpeggios that force me to skip between the strings. So the first chord is that really cool 9th chord for C major. And I'm playing it like this. So I don't want those notes to overlap. And once again, I also want to make sure to really accent those notes on the higher strings with more picking attack. So when you practice it, make sure that it doesn't sound like this. You want that kind of sound, while still working from your wrist, of course. And then you're simply moving that pattern through the other shapes. That's the diminished pattern. Then you move to the A minor pattern. And then you move down to G major. So my friend, right now is the time for you to get to work. Watching this video is not enough. So click the link down below, download the brand new practice package for this week, and also get access to my step-by-step courses right away that will guide you through all the most important techniques and theory aspects you need to know in a bite-sized day-by-day structure and formula so that you don't get overwhelmed. I'm waiting for you over there. Become my student right now. Click the link down below. I'll see you there. Bye bye.